6 o'clock.
Really? A way to reset the what? I just tried that.
So many variances.
It's the plug?
Well, my plug, I mean, it goes on and then and out of charging in the car, so it's the contacts.
My own plug upstairs, but it's telling me better. Because I'm doing the same thing.
Hey, Jessica. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. I got that check back.
Oh, cool. Really? Yeah.
Who's gonna decide what? Everybody.
I marked on there with resolution.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I figured it's easier than yelling.
Yeah.
You know, I've never had the foresight to do it.
Crazy, huh?
Mr. Myers, Mr. Isis.
Right in front of the building.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
Mr. Garfield said he might not make it. Justin and you, and do you guys want to try to pick a date for that class day?
On a Sunday?
Any
Sunday.
On any day.
Any Sunday.
Sunday's better than
Very good.
evening for you?
Good.
The training class?
It
could be any day they're gonna hold it here. Any day, any time, they're going to hold it here specifically for us, mayors, and proof of funding. Yeah. Probably not, there's no zoning board members this year, there's 5 of you guys, but the chairman was saying also, we should leave it open for any board members that wanna read. Okay. Do it like October or something? Yeah, we do like Sunday in October.
Sunday do it, you say, wow.
Okay, I'll send out the Sunday, October.
But not before 3 o'clock in the morning, afternoon.
I'll send that I'll send that some to the October date, and see if it's taken hold.
October is after.
Okay.
Is that not too late?
No, it's in evening.
Let's do it in the evening. October, next following year. The 19th.
How are you? How's everything?
Yeah, well, this one is a friend of John's, that he knows it's certified in the class, so, you know, maybe John can get it live in there.
You know, I was freaking out because I didn't really want to leave last pregnancy. And I finally went on the scale today and I ended up being 1 pound. I was so happy. Like, I was still crying this morning. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad. And I was like sprinting and I got on and I was like, thank God. Yeah, I don't need sugar. Right.
When's the next one?
Yeah.
Next meeting also?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can pay for it at the next meeting.
Ally wants me front and center. I said Ally wants me front and center.
Yeah, just bring that slide over, it's already in another form. I marked. And then the Yeah, see if it plugs in, if it needs to be, you just let us know. You may see the charger.
All right, meeting come to order. Pledge allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Grunberger, Mr. Garfield, Mr. Sable.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Here.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Here.
Mr. Purcell, Mr. Renner, Mr. Isaacson.
Here.
Mr. Graffo. Here. Mr. Meyer.
Here. Swearing in the professionals.
I'll let you start carrying in, just to make sure the board is going.
Swear affirm testimony that you give before the board is true to hold truth and nothing. Sworn in here.
I don't know how to choose this.
All right, memorialization of the resolutions.
Pardon me, Chairman. I did mark on some of the board members' agendas which, resolutions they were not intended for the public hearings, and any of which they cannot vote on. We'll start with SB 2255 for accurate builders, minor subdivision.
So moved.
Moved, we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
SB 2295, major site plan.
Move. Karen, second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
SB 2241, amended approval for phasing.
Moved.
Moved. Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
SB 2280, major site plan.
I believe there was a request for speed bumps on that side, I don't see
Yeah,
it.
Mr. Sable mentioned that today, so we have that, if that's not
Okay.
correct, what you want.
And some striping in the middle of the parking lot, right, adjacent to the building.
We'll make that subject to the, board engineer, we will add speed bumps. And what was the other thing?
Striping in the middle of the parking lot for pedestrians to cross.
I don't know if any of the professionals in the, audience were present, were representing Corley for that application. I don't recall. Okay?
So we'll make it, you know, they have to satisfy the code, I'm sure they will.
Okay.
It's in the minutes as well.
Okay, great.
Yes, I'll just add it.
We have a motion approved? Moved. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Okay. SC 2216, major subdivision for 3.
Moved.
Second motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
SC 2284, major site plan.
So moved.
Motion approved.
Second.
And second, All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
SB 2244, rating site plan.
So moved.
Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And SB 2323, minor subdivision.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Correspondence?
We have two correspondence items on tonight. The first is SB 2007 for Times Square Holdings LLC. You should have a copy of that in the top of your plan stack there. The clarification on the variances that were previously approved and required by the planning.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Adam Pfeffer, attorney on behalf of the applicant. I'm Brian Flattery here. I think you have a copy of Brian's June 26th letter. Again, as the board may recall, this has to do with the state Catholic came along and indicated that they did not approve the application, and they reduced us by 8 duplexes, so 16 units. We're taken out from this project. So we have kind of two sets of variances that we're asking for. One of them has to do with decks, and what Brian talked about the decks, the ordinance changed. The other one is just shifting of the lots for the open space. I don't know if you want Brian to be sworn in or not, because that's another on the record.
There's no downside, we start from that, something we can looking for,
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. There's basically three different variances that we're asking for clarification on. First of all, is similar to at the last meeting, the parking area in the front. If you remember the application we did along Elmhurst Boulevard, where the board asked for a shul, and they asked for as much parking as possible. On this application, when it was originally approved, and I can understand the board not remembering, it was like 2 years ago, we went through a whole CAPRA project. But the board also said we'd like to have as much parking as possible in the open space here, and that's added on the application. So we need a variance for that, same as we did for the other one, and it's the same reasoning that we don't need the parking. There's more than enough than the ordinance requires. It was not a shul required. This was put in at the board's request, but by providing the parking here, it provides additional parking. It's a benefit. The Route 9 we went over, if Route 9 gets widened, it can be 2 lanes at a lane in the middle. With the parking there, it's still fine. If it gets any bigger than that, I know I'm going to be below the dirt for a long time before that ever happens. But if it gets any bigger than that, the downside is you just remove a few of these parking spaces. The next variance is highlighted in pink on the top lots. This was back before the ordinance was changed to say decks are included in the setback. So we're asking for a 10-foot setback to the deck where a 15-foot setback is required. And then we have 2 lots on the end, and you can see on the end of the other one, we had the same situation where the corner of one of the units came close to the setback and went over the setback. Because the lot numbers changed, we lost 4 units. Instead of it being lot 13.11, it's now 13.07. And then there's another one where we have a rear. It's to a corner to an open space that we're creating. So we think all of these variances make sense. We think they're within the intent of the original approval, and we're asking for the board to approve a resolution clarifying.
Required 65 feet from the street state line. They require, you're giving 46, right?
Yes.
What is that impact going to be?
Well, the impact would be we remove the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parking.
We can comply.
We can comply. I don't think it makes any sense. We're having to do it. The board asked us when we originally approved to put this in, and at the time, in my opinion, they knew that it was in a setback, but thought it was worth it.
Does it change the sidewalk and the curving on
No,
those units?
no, changes nothing.
Any more questions on this?
Just confirming notice for this.
Yes.
So we're amending the resolution, or we're making a new resolution?
The last time we did a clarification resolution to clarify these issues were in accordance with the original intent.
There is no tree that we taken away or
No.
anything that was supposed to be there
No.
now?
No.
Including with parking?
No, no.
So you're losing parking spots?
In order to not need the parking variance, we would have to lose parking spots. Parking spots for a shul on the other property that wasn't required on the other property, and based on the ordinance, the shul on the other property has more than sufficient parking. And this board last month approved the same setback variance for the parking in front of that shul on the corner.
I mean, we can't comply with the variance, we lose parking, originally, if we ever expanded, we'll be losing the parking that way. So,
I'd like to keep the parking. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's probably, it's better than the parking now.
Yeah,
then,
we
sure.
would like to keep parking.
And then it's at some date in the future when they widen the design, so.
Yeah,
They'll take more spaces. that's-
Tell my grandkids
Well,
about it.
next March will be 50 years since we had that meeting, so it's not moving too fast.
It's definitely gonna be that.
Yes.
Well, they said within 7 years.
Another 50 years and that pavement will all crumble and it won't even be any problem to remove.
The entrance to that is gonna be through Elmhurst, correct?
Correct.
What's
Correct.
behind it? What's that corner lot? Need something built
This corner lot?
further up? That behind that new parking spot that was, to the south, there we go.
That's just an open space.
Open space.
The original plan showed this wall as open space, and that's when the board said, well, you have the open space, put in no parking.
Can we put more? Those are roads, right? Go back.
We went this far so that it doesn't really impact this.
There's a wall in there, right?
Think about another entrance though.
I think we have a problem with the state at that point, have another entrance right off the cul-de-sac, it probably, yeah, it probably would be, create more traffic conflict than it should.
All right, gentlemen, what do you feel?
I would move to keep the parking spots.
Okay.
Yeah,
We have a motion to keep the parking spots and have a second.
Yeah, second.
Any question?
As well as the other variance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the second correspondence item is SB 2069 from Pinedale Chrysler. They're looking for relief from some of the previous landscaping requirements. The site is pretty much built, all of the application on that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ray Shea, attorney at law, together with Graham McFarland, principal in PDS, Professional Design Services. Mr. McFarland?
I do, yes, Graham McFarland, professional engineer, professional planner, from Jackson, New Jersey.
And you've appeared before this board many times?
Yes, I have.
And you've been accepted in both capacities?
I have.
Mr. Chairman, may we stipulate that you can give testimony?
Yes.
For the application.
Thank you.
There was a punch list on this Chrysler building. Those of you, I hope, are familiar with the new Chrysler building. Turned out to be beautiful. It was 7 items. We're down to 3. And Mr. McFarland will identify each of those and why we don't want to do them. And then I'll be free to give you an overview of why we're really here. Go ahead.
Yes, as indicated by Mr. Shea, the work on the site is completed, CFO has been issued. If you've seen the facility, hopefully you'll agree that it's a first-class facility. Pinedale made a big investment here in Lakewood Township in building this particular facility. And they stand ready to build another one for a Subaru dealership. So the work was completed, performance bond release was requested, the Township Engineer's Office initially identified 7 items that needed to be taken care of. I believe 4 of those have been taken care of, that left 3 items remaining, from which we're seeking relief, and would need approval from this board to sell. The first item refers to the landscaping that was proposed as part of the application. I did bring a landscape plan that was approved, and you can see it shows a very small amount of landscape proposed as part of the application. contained along the front of the property and in the islands. At this time, our client really does not see any benefit of providing that landscaping in an application or a project such as this. The landscaping in car dealerships really becomes a nuisance for them to maintain and keep. And we really don't think it provides much of a benefit to the site. We're asking relief from providing that landscaping.
What would you put there in lieu of?
There is, it would be lawn grass strips. There is a very nice grass strip along the front of the property, and if you've seen the project, you would certainly agree with that. There is a nicely maintained grass strip along the front of the property that looking aside and irrigated, so that does provide some green space at the front of the property. And the other islands, it would be either grass or stone. But they're not looking to put the landscaping in the other islands.
There's only 6 islands to the over.
It looks like there's 6 islands, yes.
What are the other 2?
The other two items deal with the drainage system. This project was below the threshold of major development and technically was not required to provide any on-site drainage system to reduce the amount of runoff. However, during the design, we did decide to add a small recharge system in the back of the property behind the building. So there's a run of perforated pipe behind the building that shows on the plan. Pretty much all along the property line. That was protected during construction. We have certainly had ample opportunity recently to confirm that the system is functioning adequately with no rain and procedure. So we don't have any concerns that the system is clean or compromised in any fashion, whatsoever. So there were 2 items in connection with the drainage system. One is the township was requiring inserts to be installed in the grates, and frankly, for this facility, we just really feel they're not warranted. Any vehicle maintenance and whatnot is conducted inside the building. There's nothing that happens outside this facility that creates any pollution or any sedimentation or anything of that matter whatsoever. So really don't think it's necessary to have those inserts on the catch basin. The second item in regards to the drainage system refers to hydraulic cleaning and video inspection of the system. Again, we certainly had ample opportunity to confirm the system is working properly. It was protected during construction in accordance with standards of the Soil Conservation District. And we just think that's an unnecessary expense to have to go through. And we're fully confident, again, that the system was constructed properly and is functioning. So for those reasons, we're seeking relief really from those 3 requirements that were identified by the engineer. And they were included on the original plans that were included in those 3 items.
Question, Chairman. Grant, going back to the issue about the inserts, the contact inserts that you're referring to, is that the flow bars that we put in?
I believe Phil has specified a different brand. He has specified a contact brand on the
When you're saying that the drainage system is not major development for stormwater rule?
Correct.
Okay.
It's low threshold.
If that's the case, they're not required by state regulation. If the project was major development as defined in the stormwater rule, and if it was an underground filtration system, they would be required, or it would require some form of treatment.
Correct.
You're going to be maintaining the system, it's not how.
Yes, probably no impact to the township whatsoever.
We have no issue with the waiver of the contact inserts on this application for those reasons. The second requirement, the hydraulic cleaning, that's really a township inspection, and I'd rather deal with the applicant outside of the board in terms of reaching out.
Okay.
And that's something.
But the only, just for clarification, very short and same case, that was identified in the bond that's
Right.
So that's why we asked for that to be.
Standard item, not something that the planning board typically has jurisdiction over. I believe that's a procedural item for the inspection department to confirm that everything is constructed properly, but not something that the planning board probably is aware of.
Right, I just want to make sure that if this is approved tonight, that the town would be able to then release the bonds or finally get that good money.
If you can provide a township engineering department some kind of assurance you said tonight, you have inspected, you're confident that it is clear. It's a private system, through a town system. We wouldn't be talking
Like
about.
a signed and sealed letter.
We would consider certification with the understanding that if and when the system clogs, it's your responsibility. Of course.
Consider that done. We're not trying to evade responsibility for something that we agreed to earlier. We need to get off this bond, and that's why I'm
Is
here.
that costly to make an inspection, not with a video machine or camera? Or?
As I said, we'll work it out with the township, but we need the bond released. The problem is, we've got a Subaru dealership approved for the corner of 88 in New Hampshire, which we can't start because he can't have two performance bonds outstanding with the same lender. And that's where we found ourselves. So we're asking for your help. This company's been in business since 1939, more than 75 years serving Lakewood Township. And we're not trying to evade any responsibility. Everything that Terry just offered, we accept on the record, we'll do. We just need to get off that bond.
So we'll work everything through the engineer's office.
However, the board still does need to act on the landscaping waiver.
Yes, we can do that as long as there's no words, responsibilities on us.
I'm sorry, I just had two questions on the landscape. I think, Terry, the first one to you really is, why did we originally require landscaping?
You require landscaping with any application. This is what was on the plan. It's not something
Generally,
that
to
we
conform with,
specifically asked for.
generally to conform with what's nearby,
We
right?
typically have foundation planting similar to what you have here. You have plantings in the island. I think on this application, if I understand correctly, the applicant has focused up during the operations. They looked and they feel that A, the landscaping is not necessary aesthetically, and B, it may interfere with the operations. Is that correct?
It is.
And next door neighbors, I mean, I know that you guys have been buying property there, but is there any landscaping at all curb adjacent property? No, it's just grass.
I think it's generally grass.
This is entirely, excuse me, Ally, this is entirely compatible with everybody else.
But I think the board should take into account with the zoning requirements and design requirements, the one size fits all.
Yes.
They don't realize the car dealer has all their inventory parked in front of the building, and that, also think about 388 is like, you go down, it's all car dealers.
Yeah, but bottom is,
So
it's
it's
a
not
car
just
dealership,
for
car
this,
dealership.
but the regulations are one size fits all, and that's what the board should do.
Well
All
said.
right, do we need a resolution for this or a motion?
You can make a motion to give them the release that they request, waive from the landscaping requirements, and also,
Some inlets and the video, cleaning and videotaping.
Provide us a certification.
We will.
Photos and videotape.
Correct.
Mr. Shea, if you could provide me with a letter asking for that, I'll do an amendment to the resolution. I'll confirm it in correspondence if you show it to the town.
I'll be happy to.
The board agreed to do it, voted in favor, and then I'll get you a copy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, gentlemen, what's your motion to approve? Approved, second? Okay, motion approved and seconded. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All in favor? Opposed? So carried.
Roll call?
Yeah, I can do roll call.
James already.
Okay, so that's Mr. President.
All right. Chairman, before we start the first public hearing, I think we have a couple applications that carry for tonight, if you'd like to address those, we'll get them out of the way first.
Okay?
Okay. Item number 7 on tonight's calendar, SB 2318. Unfortunately, this notice in the paper, they actually emailed this to me by accident, it was sent to the press. So they're gonna resend that notice to paper, but they would like us to announce and carry to the next meeting, which is August 7th, for any neighbors who may have already received the notice in the mail. I'm fine with that, I'm fine with scheduling on August 7th, if the board's okay with me, that's.
Are we having a meeting on August 7th? For
Yes.
sure?
Well-
So, we might not have, no.
Do you want me to take a poll on attendance now to see who's available 2 weeks from now before we schedule items for that?
You could.
Okay.
I'll adjust myself. I know this mentioned, but Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Mr. Herzog,
yeah.
You said, may you be around, you can join
No,
us.
I will be here on the 7th, not on the 21st, which is the following.
I should be.
Yeah, I'll be here.
I may not be here on the 7th.
Okay, I mean, there's 5 applicants here, we anticipate, Mr. Garfield would likely be away, I know he has to vacation in the winter,
do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried.
Members of the public be advised application SC 2318 for Conjures Malice Torah has been tabled tonight and advanced instead to the August 7th, 2018, 6 p.m. meeting. This meeting hall, further notice will be provided in the press in accordance with that. However, the mail notices will not be sent. SC.
But that we don't have to do that.
Okay. I believe we've done that before, but that may not have been with your express.
Yeah, let me look at that.
Okay.
For now, we'll leave it that.
Okay. SC 2334 for Mr. Herzog, this is the one on, East County line. He's asked to carry to a future meeting date, he is looking for August 21st. Mr. Herzog is back that date, but that is the date that I'm not here. That is the only item as now we have for August 21st.
Is this what we discussed?
We discussed a couple of.
Yes, we did this one before.
Yeah.
It's been a long
Yes, there are
time.
2 Herzog applications that have been floating around, we've had her each a couple of times.
I think we should move to the next one, that's the only one that we have on August 21st. Should we move to the one following, or before, August 7th?
August 7th had, after that carry that we just did, August 7th had 9 Herzog.
Which one,
So we carried numbers tonight.
which application did we carry last week at the end?
The other one.
The other one of that?
West County.
When did we move that to?
September 4th, and the board asked that I keep that open for just.
Just that one?
September 4th, just that.
Okay.
Maybe we'll sneak in another Herzog that day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe we do 2 Hertz, I think there was a reason we didn't do it on the 21st.
I know Mr. Herzog has concern with having both of that applications on the same night, but that's certainly the board's prerogative.
He doesn't want to get both approvals in one night.
Overly excited.
All right, so we're going to do it.
I know Mr. Herzog's not available on August 7th, which is why he's requesting August 21st.
What's after September 1st, 4th?
Then after September 4th. September 20th. I mean, if the board has made a decision, we could carry for further notice. I mean, it's up to the board, I'm just trying to do it.
This is number 8, this is one that we promised all of these people that we recommend to the whole
No, that's the other
Yeah.
Herzog one. There's one for September 4th, we had it first by itself so far.
The second meeting in September sounds better than just having one meeting in August for this month. That's my
I
opinion.
mean, anything that doesn't get reached next meeting on the 7th is going to probably carry to the 21st anyway, so it's unlikely.
But we're not having anything that, because we're only having that Herzog.
That's the 4th.
I don't know.
That's September 4th.
Yeah. I don't know if
I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk.
I would say let's move it,
Mr.
let's,
Herzog's East County line application, he wants to carry, the board's trying to determine date, August 7th is our next meeting.
Okay, so August 21st is the next available meeting after the 7th?
Correct.
So it's the only meeting, only application that is going to that meeting.
Okay, but we have a scheduled
But
meeting.
the 7th is not,
Okay, so
it's
put
going to
it,
get carried.
I mean, my opinion anyway, I mean, if you
Yeah.
have a regular scheduled meeting, put it,
All
put
right,
it on.
we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so carried.
Members of the public be advised application SC 2334 for David Herzog has been tabled tonight and carried to the August 21st, 2018, 6 p.m. meeting in this meeting hall, no further notice will be provided. And the last one that we need to carry is SC 27B for a deal homes, they also forgot to notice. They'll have to notice for a future meeting date, however, I had handled them on August 7th, so for anyone in the public who's interested, that deal notice will be provided.
All right.
All right, so then we can record the public hearing when you're ready.
Okay.
How long is the extension? What,
Typically, it's 1 year.
okay. I'll second.
I need to move, I'm sorry.
Stable move.
They will move
We
on.
have a motion and a second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Do you need to take a roll call?
All in favor, aye, that's
Okay.
it.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, next application is also an extension of a minor subdivision, it creates 7 lots out of 4 for Jonathan Rubin at 2299.
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. This is the first extension we're asking. We're asking for a year, hopefully the only extension we'll need. Approvals just take a long time these days.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move a motion to accept the extension, to grant the extension.
I'll second.
The application is for,
Who's
Jonathan.
delaying it?
Excuse me?
Who's delaying that? Which application is being delayed?
Well, the applicant got the subdivision, the minor subdivision approval. It's on a state highway, so we need to,
Yeah, it's good stuff, yeah.
I'll
yeah.
second.
All right, well, roll call.
Mr. Siegel.
Yeah. Aye.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson.
Yes.
Mr. Grappos. Yes. Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next application is SB 2285 for JAYG Enterprises. This is a major site plan for an additional warehouse building at an existing site at 875 Commercial Avenue.
If I can go to submission waivers, Chairman?
Yes.
As indicated in our June 20th review letter, submission waivers are requested, including the EIS and tree protection management. We support the EIS waiver as noted. The submission waiver, the applicant's engineer indicates there's no trees in the area that would be disturbed, therefore we support that waiver as well.
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion to accept the waiver and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And then under zoning, we'll hear testimony shortly in terms of the project use, to document compliance with the M1 zone. Under Fulton variances, they require minimum side yard setback as well as aggregate, and rear yard setback variance. We'll hear testimony as to the adequacy of off-street parking. I believe there are side variances as well, which are identified in our letter, including setback, square footage, and height.
All of your exhibits marked, do you have any ones up there?
We have 4 new exhibits.
All right, when you mark them, A1 through 4.
You bet.
Just one more item, Chairman, on the record, on the design waivers. A design waiver is required with respect to buffering relative to the proposed off-street parking. That's also important.
For the record, Ray Shea, attorney-at-law, representing the applicant, together with Brian Flannery, planner and engineer. Flannery, please take Mr. Jackson.
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. I've marked 4 exhibits. A1 is the site plan that's submitted, sheet 3 as well. Colors showing the existing building with its proposed 6 Squatmore Avenue and the proposed building in the back of the site. A2 is an aerial showing the site and showing where it backs up to, there's an OC way easement behind the property, and then there's woods with a green quarter behind that, as well as the other industrial buildings along the street. A3 is the tax map showing the subject property. Again, you can see the OCUA easement behind it and the open space behind that. A4 shows, I just marked the highlighted, the property outline in orange, the existing building in green, and the proposed building in the back of the site. And you can see from A2 that in the back of the site there's nothing else there. A2 picks up where the site previously used it to have trailers stored back there. Those trailers are not there. At this point, the property is actually cleared in anticipation of adding the second building to the property. As Terry indicated, the existing building is in the M1. It's industrial uses that are permitted in the zone. On page 3 of his report, he indicates, as we've shown, there's an e-cigarette distributor, a metal railing manufacturer, and a distributor for beauty clothing. The proposed uses in the back would also comply with the M1 zone. We're proposing a 1,610 square foot addition or building, 16,100 square foot building in the back. That would require 40 parking spaces. We're providing 45 additional parking spaces. There's currently a slight deficiency for ordinance calculation of the parking that's needed for the site. When you take the site divided by 400 square feet per unit, there's other provisions in the ordinance where you go by the number of employees, and we've also submitted that there would be the existing building, which isn't going to change, has 22 employees. We would anticipate 20 in the back. So we're providing 89 parking spaces for 40 people. Anytime I've been by the site, there's plenty of parking. The parking spaces by the doors of the building are occupied. The rest of the site is wide open, and we anticipate it will be the same way. Terry points out in his report that 5 of the spaces in the new building are inside the building, and those will be employee parking spaces. They certainly have the availability of being used to the extent they're needed, and provides a opportunity for some of the people to park out of the elements.
Per ordinance, how much parking spots are required, not per employee?
Per ordinance, 84 parking spaces would be required, and we're providing 79. The existing site has 45, so we're adding enough parking to compensate for what we're doing. The existing site is a few spaces short, but it never needed. I mean, you can see from the aerial, anybody who's been down the street can see that based on 1 for 400, where it's a warehouse type of unit, you don't get that.
Brian, how many tenants are they expecting?
The new building, we submitted architectural. It shows room for 2 or 3. If we get one guy that wants the whole building, the applicant is going to use part of the building for himself, so it's going to depend on what the demand is. Excuse me?
You'd say the maximum occupancy for the new building is 3?
I'm thinking that would be the most it would be based on the architectural plans. Maybe there would be a 4th if there's somebody that just wants a very small area. We're asking for, going through Terry's report, we're asking for minimum side yard setback, and that's to the building in the rear. The existing building complies. In the back where all the woods is, we're asking for 15 feet side where 30 feet is required. The combined, we're asking for 63.5 where 70 is required, and we're asking for a minimum rear setback of 15 where 30 is required. Again, in the back for the wood that you can see on A2, so it doesn't impact anybody. The impervious or the building coverage that we're allowed is 40%, and we're less than 30. So we could put a bigger building on it. The building in this configuration provides an additional rateable to the town and better utilization of the property. The off-street parking we went through. The identification signs, there's existing signs there. We're removing one of the signs and moving the other one out of the site triangle. So we're improving the situation on that. But as Terry indicates, we need a setback for 5 feet, front setback where 15 is required. The sign that's been there all along and is being moved back a few feet. The area of the sign is 48 square feet is proposed, where 35 is permitted, again, for an existing sign that's been there all these years. And the height is at 8 foot, where 6 is, again, for the existing sign just being moved back to make the situation better, and one's actually being removed. To justification of the variances, these are all C2 variances. So the master plan of 2017, on page 7 under the vision, says encourage growth and development in appropriate locations consistent with established land uses. And I think if you look at A1 through 4, you'll see that this is consistent and it's an appropriate location. The municipal land use law NJAC 40:55B2 under the purpose of the act is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use and development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony that this project doesn't do that. Under G, it says provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, and commercial and industrial uses. And again, it's my testimony that this does that. In order to get the C2 variance, we have to show that it relates to a specific piece of property, and this certainly is a unique piece of property. We have to show the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced, and that's what I just read out of NJAC 40:55B2. We have to show the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to public good, looking at the effects on the surrounding property. And I think when you look at the exhibits again, you can see that there's no detriment. The variance will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, and certainly this does not do that. So we have to show that the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments. My testimony is there is no detriment, and the benefits are we provide another rateable and we provide proper utilization of the property. Continuing in Terry's report, he mentions on the 5 spaces that are inside. We're looking for a waiver for buffering where a 25-foot buffer is required. We're looking for 4.6 feet. I think if you look at where it is, the buffer is certainly unneeded and from industrial use to industrial use.
Brian, what is next door to that on the east side?
On each side, you have another industrial building.
Is there a building back that far?
No, there's no building. You can see on A2 that the back of their building lines up about with the back of our building.
Okay.
And then when you go behind it, they have a little bit of turnaround room and pavement behind it, and then woods behind it. And then it's all woods all the way over to the other side where it's pine land.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Did you take out of the square footage where the cars are supposed to be parked inside?
No, we did not.
So your parking requirements take into account as if that were also warehouses?
Yeah.
So what do you think the odds are that as soon as the CO is dry, that where those cars are parked is going to be warehouse space?
I think it's very remote. The applicant is going to be moving into that building. He specifically wants those 5 spaces for his use. So I think it's very remote.
So you think that they're going to park all their cars inside?
I think that to the extent the inside parking is needed, it's available in the use. And I know that the applicant, when he's on the site, he's going to use the inside parking. And to the extent it's needed, that the other employees will as well.
What happens if the site does not have enough parking? Let's say that gets not used the way you're disposing, and people come to the site and there's no parking. Would that have any detrimental effect on any of the neighbors or any residents?
I don't think so at all, because I've seen on industrial sites where people come and there isn't enough parking, not this one in particular, but on others in the industrial park, and where you have large loading areas and loading docks, people in Lakewood are very creative with finding a parking space in a not striped place, but I can see at least 10 spaces that...
You think it'll work out, no one's going to spill out onto the street?
Correct. Correct.
And I think to say that people in Lakewood are creative and where they park their cars is one of the best understatements.
Terry also indicates on page 5, design waivers for providing street trees, sidewalks, and a shade tree and utility easement. This is a site that was developed many years ago. It's consistent with the front on everybody else. It's my testimony that I think it would actually be a detriment to have sidewalk in the industrial area. There is a school up the street. Putting sidewalks in is going to encourage kids to walk on them and play on them. Certainly we'll defer to the board. The board, and that's why you guys get the big bucks, make the big decisions. If you want sidewalk, we'll put it in. It's my professional opinion. It does not belong there.
My job is to remind the board that they want a sidewalk.
Duly noted.
One other question, Brian. The architectural plans appear to show that you may need relief on the aisle width.
The inside parking, it's a little narrower, and that is a situation that's customary on parking garages and inside kind of parking. You have to move a little, drive a little tighter, but it's certainly parking that works, and it's not a high use, high turnover. If you had a commercial use or retail use where people are going to be coming in and coming out, that type of configuration is problematic. In this particular case, it's 5 parking spaces that the owner is going to designate 5 people who can park responsibly. Maybe not typical Lakewood drivers. Some of the ones that aren't as creative but are good drivers that would have those spaces. So it's my testimony that that's appropriate and consistent with what's done on inside parking. There was a question on the trash and recycling, and it is going to be private pickup. They have private pickup now, and they'll double the frequency of the pickup to accommodate the additional building.
Where is it going to be stationed at?
It's going to be stationed where it is now, which is in the back of the building.
Now it's not there.
It is.
Not as per 530 today. Now it's in the middle of the parking lot on the left side. You can see it on Google Maps probably as well. So now it's not there.
If the board acts favorably, it's going to be. I went there last week. It was pushed to the side.
Probably.
And the HVAC equipment is going to be behind the building. A waiver is required from screening. And again, as we look at all the trees behind, it would be ridiculous to screen HVAC equipment. The only residents back there are the deer and the squirrels and stuff, and I think they'll be fine. The other items in Terry's report, we would agree to satisfy his comment.
I John, this agree with everything that Brian said.
So am I correct that we're only deficient 5 parking spaces? Am I reading this right?
Yes.
5 parking, the whole thing, 5 parking.
Five parking spaces per the ordinance requirement of 1 per 400 square feet.
And you have 5 inside.
No, that includes,
Put the
that
5,
includes
put the 5 inside, you're deficient 5 parking.
Yeah,
10 exterior parking spots.
yes.
And there's nowhere else on site that you can put 5 parking spaces?
There's nowhere that makes sense, and we don't feel they're needed. If you've seen the site, they never use the parking spaces they have, and they're deficient on what they're doing. We're adding 45 parking spaces for the maximum of 22 employees. Just by the math, we have more than is needed. And there are other places in the ordinance where it goes by the number of employees. We went by the most conservative one, rather than try to sneak something through and have somebody say, well, the ordinance says something different. We're up front, we're asking for the parking relief per the ordinance standard, and telling you that it's parking that's not needed. We have a track record to show you that for the existing building. The proposed building is going to be used with the same type of uses. It's clear, and certainly it could be restriped in the future if there was ever a new tenant that came in and needed more parking.
I mean, personally, I understand the request for relief from the rear yard setback, because it's undeveloped property in the back, and we don't like to squeeze things in the industrial park, but yeah, nothing's ever gonna be built in the back. And the side yards, I could hear the same thing only because of what's next door, but, I mean, so you said there's nowhere else that makes sense that you put, is there any place that doesn't make sense that you put 5 spaces? Well, I understand the 5 spaces inside the building, that's gonna be, that's fine, but is there any way?
I like the back of the building, that feel, it feels like we are already missing 10 feet on the side back.
In the back building, you need a 24-foot aisle to get in. If we could show parking spaces extending to the one behind the building, I think it impacts the use of the site. If we strike them, people are going to park. I'd rather not strike them. They're there, they're available, if all of these are full, which I would never expect to see happen. But if they are, there's an availability. If we strike them, people are going to park in them, and then it's going to impact the flow of traffic on the site, which I'd rather not.
Do you think it would create a safety issue if you strike them?
I don't think it would create a safety issue, but I think the ease and the use of the site and the utility of the site would be adversely impacted.
Ron, you were there last week?
Yes.
What time was it?
Probably toward the end of the day.
4 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Or there were a lot of empty parking spots?
Yes.
I think generally a lot of empty parking spots?
I've been there because the project's been going on a while. I've been there in the beginning of the day. I've been there in the middle of the day. There's always parking.
Well, I mean, I think the functions of the current tenants are such that they don't have a lot of employees, and so there's more spots. But if you have tenants that do have more employees in the future, you probably maybe could use an extra 10 spots. And could you put a couple spots there? Maybe not all 5, maybe 3 or 4.
Justin, how many parking spots are there right now?
40.
There's 45 now.
And there's gonna be a total of 79?
79.
Mr. Flannery, just from a practical matter, I mean, I'm looking at this configuration, you have like a unit with 1 office on all the new ones. I mean, if you added up all the offices, how many people do you have?
Yeah.
1 or 2 people in the warehouse, I don't think you'd ever come close to the 79.
No, never. And additionally, if you look at the site, each door has a space in front of it. Most people can park there, and somebody inside, has somebody come with them and say, park in my spot. They can park inside, which is room for them to pull in.
And then I think we understand that the site's unique. I just don't want to get into a situation where somebody comes back and says, well, you granted a parking variance last time, so why won't you grant my parking variance? I mean, we understand. I mean, at least I understand. I think this is a unique site, but that's why I'm saying you lose fit another couple spots. Make,
How much in front of the building? What is it?
That's a short spot.
Yeah.
Is this kind of business ever, does it ever get any kind of retail traffic? Like
The-
customers come?
It would be very rarely. Most of the traffic is wholesale and stuff that's sent out. The UPS guy is in there more than anybody else.
Is there open showcase or warehouse? People can come and visit and choose, or just warehouse storage?
Just warehouse.
There's no
storage.
customers and users thing.
It's just warehouse storage.
I suggest maybe if you put it in no retail whatsoever, or no showcases, or somewhere where clients can come, that'll minimize the parking spots. Only storage, deliveries in and out.
Well, retail's not permitted. Retail's not permitted in the M1. So
I think
it's already.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think to limit the permitted, you have permitted uses.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Whatever the permitted uses are in the M1.
That's what we have.
Yeah, sure.
Parking spots for.
I think you could look at this on average too. I mean, maybe one person will have more employees, but there's a lot of individual units here. Some are gonna have fewer, some will have more, it'll probably always work out.
And Brian testified now that the current, parking situation seems to be,
And I think what you have to look at, what's the worst case scenario? That they don't have enough parking? They're probably gonna ask their neighbor next door if they can park there, or they'll work it out. They're not gonna park out on the street.
And the bottom line is you can't park on the street.
They'll go back and forth.
And what we should lose sight of the fact that the system has reasonable parking.
The overall.
Correct. But because you have an overall site, that's why I'm looking at the whole site.
I was there today, there's probably 8 to 10 parking spots taken away by garbage cans and old trailers and old trucks parked.
Yes.
So that makes it even less parking spots available.
Yeah, but.
I hope they'll take it away.
Yeah, but that's not gonna be there when the addition is done.
Brian, can we put it in there that, if it does become an issue, that you'll add those 5 more spots where you don't have those?
Yes,
Okay.
All the trailers and garbage cans and old trucks and cars.
yes.
Not the old parking spots.
It happened.
Not inside.
Yes.
Through the chair, I just wanted to ask with regard to Terry's comment number 10, he's recommending site refurbishment and specifically addresses the retaining wall that needs to be, I guess, refurbished. And, I guess what the plan indicates doesn't go that far. In number 15, it talks about, I guess, lengthening the retaining wall. So I just want to know when you say that you're going to comply with Terry's comments.
We will satisfy the board engineer with respect to the other comments.
Okay.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I have a question. The loading dock in the new building, how deep is that? Trying to get a number of how deep that actual loading dock is.
An overhead door.
I don't look at all the loading docks.
Looks like about 34 feet.
And the average box truck, I indicated it's at least 40 box and another few in the front.
But any of the,
The new loading dock, how long, how deep is that actual loading dock area specified?
Same length as, from internal, it's the same length as the whole building. On the outside.
there's the available.
Hold on, Mr. Flannery, 1 second. There's just your client is speaking from the back of the room. You can speak to him, but that's not that part of the record. I don't know if you want to have him come up before Mr. Shea.
We can disregard the comments, we'll address it.
Okay, good.
But there's the availability at all of these, cast areas for an overhead door and a vehicle to drive in, it can go all the way to the back of the building.
Right, Brian, it doesn't look like those are loading docks. Those are overhead doors.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm not sure which, specifically referred
So
to.
the truck that actually go into the building?
yes,
Okay. My concern was the truck parking outside, taking away the 40 or 45
Right.
feet of that whole alley.
right,
So that's not going to use that.
Correct.
Trucks are not going to go out more than about 30 feet.
correct.
That's the design.
All right, any more questions?
You did hurt that.
You should make that out.
Yeah.
Sidewalks, right? Yep.
So, can you move the signs back?
Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
That's the question, they can put the sign at 50 feet where it's compliant. Well, why can we do it regular?
Because with the vegetation that's there, you're not gonna see it. And I think it's better for people to see the sign. I know the first time I went out, I drove past it. I think it's better for people to see the sign, than to have the sign complying. And if you drive down that road, all those signs are in the same place.
Sign is still in the air.
Yeah.
You want to do something with it? What?
No, we're relocating the existing sign a little further back.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this application? Close it to the public? Gentlemen, what's your?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the application as presented, current sidewalks.
And just some 5 parking spots.
Yeah, and if there's maybe future parking, that maybe strike something.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Inside the building where the cars are going to be with ballards or something, so they don't hit the, I'm sure it's probably in engineering. Yeah, the fish tank over there, I don't know, the fish do. Look at it,
Well, it's on the
you got a
inside.
fish tank over there,
It's
inside.
on the inside.
I hope not, they remove the whole fish. You put something safety inside the parking.
These don't hit the push
We
button.
would certainly agree to provide some kind of, wheel stop or something to keep the vehicles from knocking down a building.
All right, any more questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
The next application is SE 2337 for Pine Street, Kirkwood. Minor subdivision to create two lots from one on Howard Street. Just by looking at the aerial earlier today, you'll notice this is an area where we've seen a lot of these subdivisions. It's been one lot, and a lot of the area there has a lot of subdivisions.
Yes.
Looking at our July 11th letter, under zoning, top of page 3, a lot width variance is required for new lot 37.02. When is that the only relief?
That's all.
Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony will give you the story of the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. My lines Lakewood, New Jersey. We're here tonight for
Is your
a.
client here this evening?
Yes.
No, it's just,
Oh, let me go in.
I've been invited to this
Right.
commercial desk.
You're gonna be here.
That's the line, you can't serve as an attorney, you can be the engineer, but.
Right.
He's not here, we'll move on. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
Anyway, you left. Hang on.
You left?
Give me 1 second. There he is.
Kevin, that seems just coming in there.
Sir, please come forward.
Please state your name. Please kindly swear. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony that you give before the court is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. You want your engineer to tell the board about the case and the relief that you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Please stay here. You can sit in the back.
As indicated, we're in for a minor subdivision on the corner of Howard Street and New Hampshire Avenue. We're requesting one lot width variance for the interior lot. Basically, they make the building envelopes the same width, so each will be 62 feet wide. So when you look at that lot in Howard Street, you build two similar width houses. Also, based on the neighborhood, 87% of the lots in the neighborhood are undersized as far as width goes. On our block, which is block 85503, right here, all the lots are 87.5 feet wide. So we're half a foot less than the rest of the subdivided lots on our block. Next block over, 85502, there's 1475 foot lots. And all the rest of the lots that are in blue, those 5 blocks, are all undersized as far as width. 100 feet is required. They range from 90 down to 75 feet. So we're in keeping with what's in the neighborhood. I think the benefits of granting the variance, so we'll have 2 nice building envelopes. Otherwise, the building envelope on the corner lot gets much narrower. If we provide a conforming 100-foot lot width, they lose 13 feet. Have a very narrow lot. Plus, the lots have to face Howard Street. The corner lot can't face New Hampshire. You're not allowed to have access, as far as the county is concerned, from New Hampshire. So both houses would face Howard, which is really the way all the corner lots on New Hampshire have been developed. I think the benefits of granting the variance outweigh the detriments. I think it's in keeping with the zone plan. It's definitely in keeping with the neighborhood. I don't think I have a detriment on the rest of the lots in the neighborhood and the subdivision. One other, we've replied with Terry's letter completely. There's only one other issue we have. The county has indicated that they have a drainage structure, they have a head wall at our northeast corner of the property. It extends into the right of way, so that last 15 feet, we can't build, we'd either have to rebuild their head wall or get a waiver from providing the last 15 feet of sidewalk. The next lot behind us to the north is a county-owned detention basin. They didn't put in sidewalk. They'll never probably put in sidewalk as far as the county goes. They don't provide curb and sidewalk on the road. They don't provide sidewalk. We're providing curb and sidewalk all along New Hampshire. We just need a waiver from that last 15 feet of sidewalk, or else we have a major reconstruction of the county.
Can you show where that is along the diagram, where you want
It's along the northerly property line, right in the corner, by county convention. So it's right in this northeast corner of the lot.
So it's only a couple feet, you don't want to put sidewalk?
It's a couple feet to a lot that won't probably also, won't have sidewalk in the future.
Mr. Vogt, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's certainly up to the board. From what I'm hearing, you couldn't continue sidewalk without altering the headway.
Correct.
So even if the future basin lot got developed for whatever reason, unless you dealt with the head wall, you still have obstruction.
Right.
Is that the testimony?
Correct. So if the county wanted to provide curb and sidewalk, they're going to have to move their own headway.
Okay, so your only variance is a lot with deficiency 87 or 100 required?
Correct.
And your exhibit there with the zoning map that's colored?
Yes.
That's not in evidence.
Put it in there.
So we have to identify that. Mark
So that would be one, tax map sheets, 111 and 112, 6010, Elm Street, right between the two taxes.
Where is your lot on that?
Where's the green lot? The very middle of the front of the exhibit. All the lots in blue are, have undersized widths. Slightly
What's the
larger.
preponderance? They look like they're all similar size. Are they 50 foot or are they 75? What are they?
They're, block 85505, that's 90. 85504, the general block is 87 and a half. The block we're on is 96 and a half. Next block over, 85502, they're 75 foot wide. And block 85501, they're 90 foot.
And the white ones, they're full size under?
They're basically double whatever else is on the block. So they just haven't been subdivided as far as, most likely they'll be in some future sites.
Brian, I know there's a good reason why that lot needs to have that 13 feet less, why it can't be divided into two lots, into 6 and 6, so it looks equal.
Correct.
You mentioned it has to be equal. Why can't that 13 be divided into two?
It just makes it so that both of the building envelopes will be the same 62 feet wide. The ordinance requires a 30-foot front yard setback to New Hampshire Avenue. So we have 30 and 10, which is 40. The other lot has a 25-foot total side yard setbacks. So we're just making the building envelopes the same width. And again, it's in keeping with the rest of the widths in the neighborhood.
Okay, any further questions?
I know one of the things that the applicant indicated, there were some neighbors who were concerned about a drainage problem. We will be putting in some type of recharge on Tower Street. This is a slight low spot to take care of that, to take care of the water that's currently on.
Well, that's not on the drawing now, though.
No, we're going to do that as a condition of approval to alleviate the neighbor's fears.
There's nothing proposed to be built now. correct? Just divide the lot.
We're just dividing the lot.
Nothing proposed to be built. Anything else to be built is gonna come back.
No, anything comes back goes to the township engineer for plot plans. We have all the permits, the permits required to fill the lot, so we will be filling the lot slowly.
Any more questions? I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak on this project? Close it to the.
I'm sorry, just comment on Mr. Davis' question. If they come in, they would have to meet all the setbacks, all the building coverages, unless they went to the Board of Adjustment. And they want to develop these lots. So they'd have to comply with all the other regulations. They'd just be a little short. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Right. We have a vote.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve, as presented, the multi-grant variance, the one lot variance, but also a condition of approval, regarding the drainage that we're talking about in Tower Street.
Can we charge?
Yeah, whatever drainage issue.
Right, we're gonna put in a storm drainage inlet would reach.
Yeah,
The
it's really an engineering issue, it's not our issue.
The sidewalk would go as per Mr. Lyons' recommendation?
Yeah, yeah.
Regarding that, can we just stipulate that if for whatever reason the basin does get developed, they'll finish that last 15 feet?
At that point, the homeowners will be in there, that's really not enforceable.
Even as a condition of approval?
I don't know how that might be 20 years from now, how do you address that in 20 years?
Your handwriting's legible.
There's really no trigger for
Yeah, there's no
anyone to
mechanism.
do that unless they're asking for like a CO.
Yeah. All right.
Okay? Right, we have a motion
I'll
and
second.
second.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Greco?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Well,
Our next application is SP 2300AA for Open Vine LLC. It's located on Turner Avenue. This is a site plan exemption to permit modular buildings for a vacant lot.
Terry?
Yeah, just under waivers, we have waivers sought, including landscape lighting, topography grading, as well as sidewalk along the property frontage, like landscaping. Under zoning, there are existing non-conformances, including lot area, lot width, front yard setback, rear yard setback, and proposed building coverage, per information from the applicant. Those are all variances were previously granted under subdivision application SB 2087. And finally, further buffer is required with respect to residential properties.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on behalf of the applicant. We're getting your waivers. Who wants to move on those?
if you don't move, you don't vote on it now, you vote on it later after we hear. There's sidewalks and a bunch of stuff.
You can wait if you want.
I'll wait.
You can wait on the design waivers.
If I can, this time to swear in Mr. Flannery.
You swear affirm testimony given before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. I've got 4 exhibits marked. A1 is the site plan that was submitted, showing the proposed modular building that will be used as a shul, and the property outlines. A2 is a tax map showing block 1043 where we are. In orange, I've colored in lot 5.02, which is where the shul is proposed. In pink is lot 6.01 and 6.02, where there's an application that's been made for a shul, so that a permanent shul would be built on this block. A3, when we did the tech review, some of the comments were to add more parking if we could. What we've done is we've added 2 additional stacked parking spaces, so that we could have 8 parking spaces here for the temporary shul. And A4 shows the site plan that was submitted for lots 6.01 and 6.02, where the actual permanent shul would be constructed. Now, the ordinance allows that when you have a site plan application for a shul, then you can put up a temporary shul so that people have where to pray until the shul is built. If you look at A4, it's a 100 by 100 lot. We're putting in a shul and parking spaces. I've totally green the areas that aren't going to be constructed on. So there's no way that we can put anything on that lot where the permanent shul is going to go while we're building, getting an approval and building the other one. So the applicant, the congregation, was able to find a property down the street that said they would be available, that we could put the temporary shul and parking until such time as the proper shul is constructed.
That shul has been approved already?
It's been submitted.
It's not very clear, maybe it hasn't been inspected yet.
Has not made a plan review yet. It's been submitted.
So we don't know how, when, if and when it's going to get approved and when it's going to start building.
Well, we know it's going to take a couple of years to get it up and running. So if you've been out to this area recently, there's probably 50 families living there already, and another 100 units that are getting close to construction. And we have the people from the area, the congregation here, raise their hands to indicate that they're here and they need a place to pray sooner rather than later. So looking at Terry's report, it indicates the waivers we're asking for, and obviously we're asking for those waivers because we're going to build a shul on the pink lot, and we're going to provide the curbs and the sidewalks and the curbs and the sidewalks are in as part of the development. We're going to put the sidewalks and the shade trees and do everything the right way for the permanent shul. We don't want to be putting stuff in on this temporary shul that's going to need to get ripped out in the time frame where we get the proper shul constructed.
Do you agree this is going to take more than 3 or 4 or 5 years?
No, I would think it would be in a 2 to 3 year time.
And 2 to 3 years is not that significant?
I don't think putting in something that putting concrete sidewalk in that's going to get ripped out in 2 years makes sense. Obviously, again, you guys are the board. You tell us we got to put in the sidewalk, or we have to put in the sidewalk. If we're asking for that relief, we think it makes sense. You can see all across the front of the site, we've provided the parking, so there's parking all across it, and stacked parking as shown on A3 to get as much parking as can fit. This is a modular unit that the congregation was able to acquire. I think it's driving around the block now waiting for an approval so they can pull it in. The lot is there, the lot is available. There's people that need to pray, but we're hoping we receive the site plan exemption from the board. With respect to the variances, the existing variances that were granted for the single family, we're asking for the variances at this time also, but it's on a temporary basis. It's on a 2 to 3 year basis that they will go away. It's in an area where there's nobody else that's going to be impacted at this time, and it's an inherently beneficial use that would be aided by this relief. Page 3 of the report indicates, are there any other ancillary uses? No, absolutely not. There's no school, there's no residential use, there's no simcha hall, there's nothing. It's a modular structure that the people can pray. The anticipated parking demand, it's an 830 square foot shul. Under the current interpretation of that section of the ordinance, that means 8 spaces, and we've provided 8 spaces. It will be ADA accessible. The trash and recyclables, we would envision Public Works picking up in the rollout cans, similar to other facilities of this type. There would be lighting on the side of it, and the utilities in the street are capable of serving this. When we look to the ordinance as to the direction of the ordinance with respect to this, section 18-905 E has a provision for temporary facilities, places of worship, and the township zoning official may approve these temporary facilities as of right without even coming to the board if we were on the same lot. So if we wanted to build on this lot, we could get a permit to do it. We would have gotten the permit last week and would have been there. Since we can't fit it on a lot, we have to come to the board and ask for relief with respect to that. But the requirements that are put in place in order to accommodate that, we are meeting. An application has been submitted for permanent construction. The use of the trailer will be limited to religious services only, and a plan showing setback, parking, buffer requirements, and the rest is submitted. Section 18-601 of the ordinance indicates that we need a site plan. However, if the applicant can clearly demonstrate that because of peculiar conditions relating to the subject parcel, literal enforcement of the section is impractical or will exact undue hardship, the planning board may permit exemptions and waivers as may be reasonable. We're hoping that the people that are here saying we need a place to pray, it's a hardship, it's a unique situation in that it's a lot that doesn't fit a temporary one. There's units up, there's people that need to pray today. That's certainly a unique condition, and it will be a severe hardship if they have to wait for a whole site plan process before they can park this trailer on the site and begin. Certainly the master plan of 2017, the vision statement says encourage growth and development in appropriate locations consistent with established land uses. This would be a temporary situation. It's certainly going to provide inherently beneficial use to the units that are going up. It fits in. It's somewhere where it has no adverse impact. The municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, says encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use and development of all the land in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony that does this. With respect to the variances that we need for the setbacks that we've granted for residential, it's my opinion they would certainly be consistent with this inherently beneficial use as well, and meet all the criteria of the C2 variance.
How many people do you think will be in this show? How many can it have? 830 square feet.
30 to 40.
And you agree that we'll have at least 30, 40 cars over there at the morning hours?
Well, it's in a neighborhood where there's 50 units within a block of it. So there's 8 parking spaces. I've been in Lakewood a long time. I know what happens. That when it first starts, 50 people will drive there. Then they'll drive back. They'll park in their driveway and walk. And the next time, they'll just walk from their driveway rather than do that. Lakewood people are very smart. They catch on quickly. And when they find the first time that they drive and there's nowhere to park, and they spend all that time driving and have to walk from the driveway, they walk from the driveway. This particular development, there's 30 or 40 people, and that's why they're here, because there's 30 or 40 people that have to walk a long distance to get to somewhere. So it's my opinion that the 8 parking spaces complies with the ordinance, and it will work, especially in this area where it's the duplex units that are in close proximity.
Or will decide to park on the street?
Well, there is some street parking that's available because the streets are 32 foot wide.
And there's both sides of the street as well.
There's both sides, except there's duplexes on most of it.
I think the opposite side does not have, or not.
Well, it doesn't have duplexes today.
I don't think it's that.
Well, directly across the street, it's not going to be. That's where the stormwater basin is. But in both directions, there's places, and there will be an occasional place on the street. And again, I don't think that's really a problem when you have 32 foot wide streets. We have a lot of problems in Lakewood where the streets are 26, 28 feet wide, and people park on both sides, and then vehicles have trouble getting through. When you have the 32 foot wide, if you're not parking by the driveways and you have all the openings to the other driveways, I think it'll work.
Do you understand my concern with the parking?
Yes.
It's going to be a mess.
Yes, and I certainly hope that the congregants that are here hear your concerns, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be impacted by it because it's their neighborhood. And I would expect that,
My biggest concern is pedestrian crossing. If they're gonna park on both sides of the street, it's a curve over there. I'm not sure what we can do and how we can stop it. It's by the end of the lot, by the street where it curves around, by the ball
the
field.
alley that connects the two roads.
There's a limited view over there when you make the left turn or the right
Right.
turn. On the curve, cars are gonna park. I'm not sure what we can do and if we can do something, but maybe together we can figure something out so we can minimize problems,
Well,
safety problems.
we certainly would be happy to approach the governing body with respect to no parking in places where it's needed.
John, can we enforce the T939 over here on the public roads?
Title 39 is generally for like a shopping center where there's internal circulation. Yeah, this is just pulling in off the road. I mean, it's a practical matter. I don't know what traffic, I could say they'll agree to Title 39 enforcement, I guess, but I don't really see how.
Can we
applies
enforce it
to
on
Title
public
39.
roads? It's not owned by the HOA, the roads.
I'm sorry?
Public roads don't need title.
I think these are public roads, it's
No,
not,
public roads, the police can always enforce the traffic
you
regulation.
cannot park on the street, on public
Well,
roads?
That's not what title 39 is.
what Title 39 is, let's say you have a shopping center, you want people to stop at the stop signs and not careless driving, the police want to write tickets in the shopping center, that's what that's for. But the way this is set up, it's really not applicable.
Is there any way we can enforce not parking on that street?
The applicant would use a letter request from the township committee that there only be one parking on one side of the road. Obviously, we can't guarantee it, we have no problem with the board feels that if your recommendation is that only has parking on one side, we would send a request to the township.
The governing body has authority over how you park on the streets. They'd have to pass an ordinance, they'd have to have the political will, and then follow through to enact an ordinance, and they'd have to think it made sense. Maybe the people in that neighborhood, would not like that, because then they couldn't park.
We can ask them and put it in the
Well,
letter. Maybe they don't want the parking over there, they'd rather walk, and then it's
We can
beautiful.
certainly send a recommendation to the governing body that they look at eliminating parking on one side of the street here. And you could put a condition in the resolution that congregants are not permitted to park on the street. And that would be very difficult to enforce that.
So I think we should start off with that. That'll help a lot with the parking spots. So we'll ask the members of the neighborhood if they're interested in that, if they're okay not to come. We'll put it in the letter to the governing body. That's a good start. Well, sidewalk we have to have, I agree. I would ask for sidewalks. Even though it's gonna be temporary, but it's still 2-3 years.
So just have temporary.
It's at least 2-3 years.
On the number of years, I'm sorry, what's?
That's the first 3 years.
3 years?
What-
Yeah, sidewalks,
But-
although I don't know how you put a sidewalk here because the entire frontage is parking spaces.
Can we move it back in and have the
Well,
sidewalk?
the sidewalk would go in the right of way, so the cars would drive over the sidewalk to get to the
Oh, I
park.
see.
It would be an apron.
Yeah,
The whole
Yeah.
thing would be an apron.
Right.
Yeah.
Big concrete apron. Back
Which
where
they
you
have to do
black-
anyway,
Huh?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
well, it's going to have to be anyway.
yeah.
If they're going to pave these spots, they have to, so,
So you run a concrete apron down the whole front and then pick up their blacktop and from the apron back to the end of the parking lot. That would be a problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to speak in private, please take that to the hallway. We can hear everything echoing up here. It's very difficult to see what's going on. Thank you.
Is the owner of lot 501 here? Can we ask him for a video?
Yes.
Can we speak to him?
do this.
John?
Yes.
He's the owner of
At the
it.
plan review meeting, Ms. Morris asked me to bring, this was subdivision was approved for a single-family home, and it got variances for a single-family home. So the applicant has to ask for reaffirmation that those dimensional variances can also apply to a house of worship. Right?
And that was my testimony, and I gave the justification from the master plan and from the municipal land use law.
Okay, now, and I'm sorry, sir, you,
Say less, you were 5.1 here, you had a question.
okay, sir, please identify yourself.
Shul Rabinowitz, I live in South Drive.
I'm not going to put you under oath or application. Do you swear affirm testimony will give the before the truth, all good, nothing but. Please address Mr. Taylor.
When are you planning to build on this property? Anytime soon?
Next month?
Next month.
No. What is the question?
My question is, can you use the parking spot? Can you use that lot for parking?
I can't afford to give it up. Can I give it that's 2 or 3 years?
For 2 years? For a year? Negotiate? Something, no? You okay with this, show? And you're not concerned for the parking all over, for the safety?
No.
Why not?
I understand the third part of it, but I don't know how to, I hear the question that you're saying, I just don't know the way to deal with it.
Until you start building?
I do believe that the show, and being that I know the neighborhood very well, is going to be used almost exclusively by people in the neighborhood. It's hard for me to believe that they're coming with their cars. I don't see that, okay?
I live in a development house where we also have a
From what-
modular. No, we have a modular shul also temporarily.
Right.
They come from the entire south side of Lakewood. They come down over there, which is okay.
Right.
But there's a lot of cars come. There's not many on them, especially later, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I don't know if this is going to happen here or not. We have to be prepared. I'm living that. I know.
Since you're mentioning that, and I'm on top of the show for a long time,
On Central
the
Avenue.
more successful the show is, the more parking that you have. So you make 20, you'll have 40. You make 40, you'll have 60. It's always going to happen. Just you try as much as you can.
Like I'm asking, the amount of
I know. I agree with what you say. If there's a way to find parking, and I'm fairly involved in that area, I'll try to find more parking. I don't know that he has it in his hand right now.
And your lot is
But
not.
the answer to the question is, as long as it's not being built, can you put a couple of cars there?
You agree to put some gravel until it's fixed out?
Absolutely, but the only thing that I can't commit with is if it's being used, yeah, but if you want to put a few cars there,
Mr. Statewide, I'm not sure that the board can require that, given that that lot was not part of the application,
Right.
included in the public notice.
But it's for our decision, it's going to help us knowing that we have some parking spots over there, if needed.
kind of for your knowledge, you could.
And then she said you can probably put it in the resolution.
Right,
or the ordinance.
because I'm not getting an easement for that either,
Right,
but the
absolutely.
reality is if you want the car park, it was. Okay. I can tell you how long it's really.
And this is the same owner as the new shul, as the proposed shul?
It's the same.
It's the same congregation.
So you can use the parking over there as well, until we start building.
What's the size of the new construction?
That building in between is already built, the house, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, what's not even on?
So the corner
So
shul.
they want to put gravel, you mean? Yeah.
And the lot in pink. Where the shul
The lot in
goes.
pink.
Right, is it currently under construction?
Certainly, until he starts building. He can put
It's
ground
an
down.
application, which hasn't had.
Was that application submitted? It wasn't.
Well, what's the
I don't have
status?
any record of it on paperwork in front of me, and I don't recall it, so to be honest, I don't do the list.
What's the state of the lot now, Mr. Flannery, where the shul is going? Is that available for parking?
That could be used temporarily until they start construction.
Is it wooded, is it cleared, is it very grass?
It's cleared.
It's cleared,
Yes.
and, what's the soil like?
It's Lakewood soil. If they put some gravel down, yeah, it's sand, put gravel.
But, Mr. Table's question is, could people park on that lot for construction?
Yes,
And, you know, that would work.
yes.
Who has the
I don't know if
parking?
that's a good idea, the neighbors who are next to that, if they just want cars piled up or take a lot of their house. You know, don't forget, that creates issues too. And then you'd have to stack the cars in, you know, it's not really set up as a parking.
We can make it happen. We'll have to figure out somewhere safe and somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, who can make the decision for that lot?
The
For the
big
corner
lot,
lot, yeah.
the big lot, the applicant is willing to.
Same owner? Same owner?
Well, yes, it will be,
I don't think it's probably that one.
yeah, it's not the same owner now, it's the same congregation. They have contracts on both lots, one to use temporarily and the other for the permanent shul.
There you go. All right, any further discussion? Go for the meeting to the public.
Yeah, Mr. Renner told me it's the same family. I don't know if that's I don't know what that means. I've been in Lakewood a long time, but
Well, are the lots owned by the same, right now, they're not?
no, they're contract purchase.
But you would make a representation and you would promise that you would put gravel and make
Yes.
that lot available for parking?
Yes.
I would imagine that would be a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Where's it down?
All right, we'll open the project to the public. Anyone wish to speak on this project? All right, close it to the public. Gentlemen,
At the same time, raise your hand, everybody's here.
John is not gonna be happy.
Support of the shul, just raise your hand. Everybody here was against the shul.
They always ask them to always leave the park at home and walk.
All right, do we have a motion to establish comment?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve it based on, we have that gravel on the 2 parking spots until they start with sidewalk
Sorry, which gravel?
on both properties owned by.
That are not in the application.
Not included as part of the application, even though it's paperwork, is that acceptable if the
Well,
applicant
we
receives-
cannot require that, but we can
One is
accept
owned, but it's in order.
the applicant's representation that they will provide that, and we can make the use of this lot contingent upon that being gravelled and made available for parking.
Until some time is construction.
Right, we'll work on language and resolution, when construction commences, that will happen.
And no parking on, we'll put in a letter to the governing body requesting no on-street parking.
Okay.
As for the residents.
One side.
One side, yeah.
Yeah.
We have so much parking now.
We have 2 lots.
Well, one side is maybe the shul anyway, so you can't park in front of it.
Mr. Sable, that's no parking on one side of Torrin, just for the extent of the block, or what's the limit for this?
Until the end of the.
It'll be the extent of the block.
Yeah.
In front of block 1043.
And so till the corner of Arca, what's the name?
Well, if we say in front of 1043, then.
Gentlemen,
Very good,
please.
very good.
We'll write to the, Ally, you'll write a letter to the governing body.
Typically, we ask the applicant request that, because the governing body doesn't, is not really receptive to those, and I don't know if the planning board should be getting what.
Okay, well, that's fair enough, we'll make that the applicant make that request.
Thank you.
The planning board can make the request too, and they can.
Or the, at least it's in the resolution, that it.
Right, we'll make them do it. Okay, that'll be condition.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve it based on this.
Yes,
And
yes,
sidewalk throughout?
No, sidewalk in front of this lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't make it. Yeah, curb and sidewalk on the property.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Graffo? Yes. Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Our last application on the agenda is SP 2302, Chairman, I'll give the room.
Yes, that's right.
They are very quiet.
Gentlemen, would you please leave if you're gonna leave, so we can go on with the next meeting? You stay.
No variance?
Can the next application come forward, please? This is,
I almost give it a ribbon minute, but it looks like they're all staying. Application SP 2302AA, made by Mary Shimon Kamanowitz. Continue to extend an exemption for the existing house to the pool.
Kind of summarize waivers here. As indicated in our letter, there are no bulk variances required, however, waivers are sought, including, but not limited to curb and sidewalk along the frontages, shade tree and utilities, and shade tree lighting landscape.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I I think before we grant the waivers, let's get the application. It's in a residential neighborhood. To start granting shade tree, landscape, I think we should wait till we hear the application.
I agree.
Like we did that on the last
Yeah,
one as well, right?
You ready, Brian?
I'm ready.
Do you swear affirm testimony to give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. I have two exhibits. A1 is the plan that was submitted for the change of use, showing the house and the proposed driveway that can stack the 6 vehicles. And additionally, A2 is the tax map showing in orange the subject lot on East Fruit Street. I have, the school has been working on the plans for the classrooms, and they have plans which are a little bit different. It's still the same number of classrooms. So, as indicated, we're going for a site plan exemption to change a house to a school. It's 3 classrooms. The school will have 22 students in the 2 bigger classrooms and 13 in the smaller classrooms, for a total of 53 students, which will come in 2 buses.
You said 22 plus 13 or 20 plus
22
23?
in the 2.
Oh, okay.
And then 13 in the smaller class, for a total of 57. Looking at Terry's report, it indicates we're in the R20 zone, field or permitted use. We're asking for definitely waivers on the curb and sidewalks, which I'm not expecting the board's going to have to beg on that. It's going to be a boys' elementary school, and as such, none of the boys will be driving. And occasionally, as in any school, currently dropping kids off. We're indicating 6 parking spaces. We have 2 offices and 3 classrooms shown, so we comply with the ordinance with respect to classrooms. And certainly the applicant is looking to develop a proper school, and they're growing. They're starting out and they're growing, and this is the first step of their growing. The master plan of 2017, the vision statement says encourage growth and development in appropriate locations consistent with established land uses. This particular property, across the street from it on the northern side of the street, there is a school. It's an area where there was an application on the other side of the street to do a subdivision of some of the lots. Some of the lots are large here. I know the board's seen these applications in the past. The applicant came in asking for a little relief, and the neighbors came out and said, we'd rather see you build a school that conforms than grant any relief on the housing. Probably changes when the school actually comes in, because I know anytime I present a school application, everybody in Lakewood is for school, not particularly in their neighborhood. This particular neighborhood, though, I think since you already have a school, the close proximity to New Hampshire Avenue, and just the size of the property in general, I think it makes sense. And again, it's a permitted use, and it's an inherently beneficial use. So as far the trash and recyclables, we would anticipate we would have rollout cans and DPW would pick them up. If not, we'll have to do private parking.
You have a letter already.
Excuse me?
DPW already gave a letter.
I think so. Okay, I didn't see that, but all right. So we're asking for the site plan exemption. In the past, these were done without even coming to the board, and then there were a couple of applications where people came in and they surprised people at schools and didn't necessarily do the right thing. So at this point, we're here to show you what we're doing. The application asks for relief on the sidewalk, which I don't think we'll get. So, if the board says we'll put the sidewalk, we'll put it back.
So it's a variance-free application. You have parking according to the ordinance?
Yes, we have 6
spaces?
parking spaces, we're 5 remaining.
Yeah, and the design waivers in this case, I mean, me personally, and I just speak for myself, I don't think are something that I would want to grant because it's a residential neighborhood and, you know, I have a school next to my house and the way they set it up is that there's landscaping in front of the school. It's an allowed use, it is what it is, but it looks nice.
Yep.
So, it's gotta look nice.
Yep. I had one next to my house as well.
I know. Which is fine, but
Yes.
it's gotta look, it has to be respectful to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
I heard parents are going to be dropping kids off.
We don't anticipate parents dropping kids off. It will be an occasional thing as any school.
So how do the kids get here? Will they be busing?
Yes, there'll be 2 buses.
Okay. Is there issues with circulation?
The current configuration, what we're asking for is to do like a lot of the startup schools do, that the school bus would stop at the curb line and the students would
I believe that's a requirement for schools now to provide a circulation plan. Are you asking for a waiver from that?
Yes.
Okay. Just one other question on the roadway plan. It's showing the road appears to be depicted as variable with pavement. Have you looked at the road and
Yes.
built out?
Yes, it's a typical Lakewood roadway, probably 28 to 30 feet. It certainly complies with the RSI and it's adequate for the existing school that's already there as well as this proposed.
And the unfinished basement is not being used?
That is correct. That's going to stay in its current configuration and not be used for the school.
Okay. How about ADA accessibility? Is that proposed?
We'll certainly need to comply when we get building permits with ADA accessibility ramps and whatever else is needed. Will be done when architectural plans are drawn, and certainly those will be submitted to the board for your acceptance as well.
Thank you.
But that means you're losing a parking spot?
Or
I mean, I can send 6 including one ADA. So that means, why only have 5 regular users?
we could certainly put a ramp and access way next to one of the parking spaces. An ADA compliant parking space, you need to be able to fit the vehicle in, and then you need the access next to it to get out. And we would certainly add that to Terry's satisfaction.
That's gonna be a handicap parking spot.
Yes.
Nobody else can use it, only
Well,
handicap.
it's similar to every parking need that we have, you count the handicap spots.
So we
In
only
this
have
particular,
5.
in this particular case, the ordinance only says we need 5, because we have 3 classrooms and 2 offices. So we need 5, we provided 6. One of them will be handicapped, which is normally counted, but it doesn't compensate.
Is the garage gonna become a classroom also?
No. The garage will not be finished, it will remain as a garage.
Is there one of the 6 parking lots in the garage?
No. That provides an extra parking space if needed. I would anticipate the garage will be used, like most Lakewood garages, for storage.
How do we enforce it basically not used? Just not a no CO for it. No.
We're gonna put it in the resolution.
We have any more questions?
Where is the parking lot gonna be? I don't see the picture of the building. And reflecting the parking spot. Is it the front?
The parking spot, it's the existing driveway, there'll be stacked parking. In the existing driveway.
Is the basement finished or it's not finished?
The application indicated not finished, I haven't been in it, so.
Very silly. They say that.
It's unfinished.
The basement is not finished, okay.
And we make school buses go in and out, any way of making the circulation, instead of having, because the house is pretty far in,
Yeah.
and it rains or
Well,
snow.
there is room to provide a pull-off for the.
I think the lot is pretty
Yeah.
wide and deep, so we can make that circulation for our bus.
But I would think we would just have the bus, as on other residential neighborhoods, the bus come off the road, not go all the way in, stop there, and then go back out.
It's probably a better move. It's probably a better move. Get the bus off the street.
Yeah.
If you want to, or they can go in and come around, park near the field, with this space, I think.
Brian, what's the total number of faculty members?
You're gonna see the front, right?
Six faculty.
There would be 3 teachers and a secretary.
Okay, any more questions? All right.
Did he say something about circulation? Can we figure that out?
What we're intending to do is develop the back of the site, and then the play area will be in the front, there'll be some kind of a fence in front of the people. If we have the bus system all the way in, we have the whole front of the site. And I don't think it accomplishes anything as far as the impact on the neighbors. If we get the bus off the street on our property, the kids walk an extra 60 feet, and it leaves an area in front that isn't,
I think that's what we're talking about, just getting the buses off the street.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
Yes.
the whole, circulation through the site.
After a tiny bit of arm twisting, we would agree.
All right. Any more questions? Open it to the public, anyone wish to speak on this application? Give your name and address, please.
Shlomo Goldwasser, 1446 East Route.
Sir, please spell your name.
SHLOMO, last name Goldwasser, GOLDWASSER.
Please raise your right hand. Please swear affirm testimony you give before the tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
I was looking through the project description and had a couple questions myself. How many classes do they anticipate coming in, not into the building, but in the school, coming in the coming year?
I think that should be addressed to the applicant.
How many classes do you have planned coming in?
The classes that would be at this facility, that are in the school, well, where 3 classes are going to be accommodated at this site. There will be an off-site facility that's rented for an additional 2 classes.
So which 2 classes are there now? Which 3 classes are we going to?
Primary and 1 third grade class.
And how do you plan to get 2 buses, kind of going around and around Lakewood to pick up everyone? How's that working? What's the plan? Which school is going to have 2 buses picking up everyone? Is there going to be 2 buses? Yeah, and you go around the primary side, right? And we plan to get everyone, we get a bus to help and we get everyone. And we get the primary classes, right?
Would you speak in the microphone, please?
Speak into the mic, but you can address the question. Go answer the
No, you're
question.
not, you gotta get closer to it.
They have 2 primary classes coming in. Where's that student body coming from? And do they plan on having all of them on those 2 buses, which are going to be circling? They're planning on going around the entire Lakewood. What's that? Is that a real plan? Is that something that's legitimate?
Hold on a second. Just question. Can you respond to the question?
Well, they have 2 buses. A bus can hold 52 children. We testified there's going to be 57, so
What's
half
the
of them.
capacity of the school?
The school is 57.
What's the occupancy?
I'm not sure what the occupancy is. What the number of students that are going to be there is 13 in the one classroom and 22 in each of the others, for a total of 57.
All right, thank you.
57 can be picked up on 2 buses, and one bus pick up half the kids, the other bus pick up the other half.
And they're going to go around Lakewood, is that?
Hold on, sir. Please Into the microphone, we can't hear you.
And do they plan on going around Lakewood on those two buses?
Hold on a second. What's the question?
Do they plan on going around Lakewood on those two buses to pick up everyone, or that's a plan, that's a real plan?
The bus is gonna go wherever it has to go. That's.
Can I interject for a second? Are you asking if they're really gonna have two buses, and
Yeah,
they're not gonna have
correct.
30 cars come every?
Well, that's part
really what you're
part of
asking,
it, and is
right?
it something that's done in other areas where they have two buses going around for 2 hours going around, like, everyone knows what Lakewood parking is, I like it though,
Right,
driving.
is it another way of saying you don't agree with this testimony, you think it's not realistic?
I'm questioning it.
Well,
I think
we get what your question is.
Okay, so, move on to the next one. Perfect, well done
yeah,
then.
no, so basically, the applicant's testifying that they're gonna have two buses. I would hope that they're telling the truth, because they're under oath testifying that, so, I mean.
Okay, so there's also another school across the street that also has busing, and they also have students that parents somehow, not everyone makes the bus on time, that's a fact of life. And there are cars that come, and when there's no busing or anything like that, we have cars that are lined up down the block. Having an additional school on there is going to, make it probably onto Spot or to Albert, possibly New Hampshire, either way, which is something which is a major safety concern on our end as well. The other question is the faculty. What was the number on the faculty?
Please speak into the microphone.
What's the number on the faculty?
3 teachers and a secretary.
Is there a principal there?
The principal would be back and forth between facilities.
Does he need a parking spot when he's there?
We provided for 6 parking spaces. I just indicated that there's 4 that'll be parked there. That leaves 2 open.
Anyone handicapped? I hope not. Is that ADA compliant?
Hold on. Question's been answered, go ahead.
Okay, now, what's the bathroom situation in there? You have 60 kids, and how many bathrooms?
Mr. Flannery, does the building meet architectural and building code regulations?
Well, they won't get a CO, so.
Look at a permit.
I don't think it's the board's concern how many bathrooms they have, that's architectural.
They're not gonna get a permit.
It is, because if there's, first of all, there's a septic
Sir,
on site.
I've advised the board, please move on to your next question.
Okay, there's a septic on site. Is that in the front or
They
is
have
that
to
in
meet
the back?
septic regulations, that's an outside agency.
Where the kids gonna play, and where's the buses gonna go? Are they gonna go on top of the septic? Are they gonna play in the back on top of the septic? I don't know if you know, the past, 5-6 years ago, there was actually a kid that drowned in the septic, and is that a safe thing to have around the school? That's another concern that's there. And are there any tutors that are gonna be coming on, any special ed classes?
The applicant indicates that there will not be any.
This is all very, it's a parent body, is that what it is?
I didn't.
So that's firm.
Hold on a second.
All right, let's take the ask your
That's
questions,
Mr.
get
Flannery.
answers, let's not be sarcastic.
Okay, so there's not gonna be any tutors, no special ed, no nothing else on site?
That's what his testimony is.
That is the testimony, and the parents seem to be indicating, yes, they have special children.
No. And so, my concern is as the parents that has kids that are driving bikes and other things in the area, as well as being that it's also a driveway that's singly stacked. I'd be curious to have everyone backing out near schools, having drop-offs is a concern for my kids, for myself, and just even concern for the school. There's another school across the street as well. There's a tremendous backup of cars. Traffic is a nightmare. A lot of danger, the hazard just from the school itself. The people that are driving up and down the block. It's a major concern. I hope it doesn't get approved. And recently, it was brought up by the last time when they wanted to make a cul-de-sac across the street that people were against that and they wanted the school. So I actually have the minutes here. I can go through a few of them if you'd like. Where everyone said Actually, let's find some of them.
Whether people were opposed to the last school.
No, it's just, no, it's not about the school, it's that no one here is pro the school, which he said in the testimony, if people were pro school, I have everything here that no one was pro the school. And there were a lot of safety concerns, but just the fact that there was 5 houses to go up, there was a big safety concern that the board themselves brought up. I can't imagine how a school that would pass their safety concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Give your name and address, please.
Rishi Kat, and address is 143 Hillside Boulevard.
KAPZ?
KAPZ.
Please raise your right hand. Please swear from testimony that you swear with the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please speak in the microphone.
I just want to say my child is currently in the school and it's run extremely well. There are 2 buses that really go around. They drive around picking up kids. Passing by the school, there's never trip. It's run very well. The rules, everyone keeps to the rules. Runs extremely smoothly, and anything they say they do, they really keep their words. I just want to say to that.
Where's the school now? Where's the school station now?
Swarthmore.
Have you ever taken the kids to school by car?
Very rare. Bus does a great job.
Hey, let's face it, guys, there's gotta be parents that are gonna bring the kids to school.
Yeah, so
That's
I have
bottom
it once in a
line.
while.
But,
They come by. It's
Right.
2 cars there. You drive by. It's done very well. I've never had an issue.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the public? Speak heard? Give your name and address, please.
Elio Finkel, 1442 East Spruce Street.
FINKL? Correct. Please raise your right hand. Please swear from testimony that you swear with the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Confirm.
Please proceed.
I think I offer a unique perspective to the board. I think I'm the longest current occupier of that block from anyone here. I've lived there for about 8.5 years. Stable, I think I've seen you around as a medical professional. I think we're on the front lines that we know the problems that driving Lakewood could cause. We've probably both seen the effects of it. So many of you probably have never been to this block. There are no sidewalks on this block, there are no curbs on this block. It's a very sparsely populated block.
Next door has a sidewalk.
2 houses have sidewalks, correct. They're under construction, so they have to have sidewalks, but the rest of the block doesn't. There are no curbs on this block. There are children that play on this block, and they're constantly going in and out on the side of the road. Bringing more traffic to this block, specifically people who are going to be parking on the side of the road and blocking the line of vision of these children who are going to be driving their bikes into the street, as well as bringing more cars driving down the block who are inevitably going to be driving their children to school, whether they would like to say that or not. There are going to bring traffic, and there are going to be more cars coming, and I think that as parents, our primary responsibility is the safety of our children. I don't think that, having stacked parking is a wonderful idea on paper, but have they going to back out of the block when the person in the front has to go out because he has to go to the other site. And when the parents nicely drop off their children and pull in, they're probably going to make a U-turn and pull out, and they're going to be backing out. So it's just bringing more cars to the block, and I think that the danger outweighs the benefits. I understand that it's a permitted usage of the property. There is a school across the street. I'm not sure how that weighs as a positive factor. If anything, having outlets of busing directly across the street from each other, I would think would be detrimental to the safety of both schools. The occupants of the other schools, actually more than one school, if I'm not mistaken. So having multiple schools pulling out at the same time into the same narrow block that doesn't really have many outlets, because New Hampshire and Albert at the snow supply are both parking lots because of the primary feeders of Oak Street. I don't see how this is feasible. At a minimum, I would ask you to postpone the hearing until we have an adequate site plan and we have a map of where the cars are going to be going in and out, where the buses are going to turn around, and if there's any way that this is actually feasible.
So the dilemma or the issue that the board is confronted with is the zoning regulations in Lakewood allow for this. So through the lawful process, the governing body has enacted zoning regulations that say when you want to have a school and convert it from a house to a school, there are very minimal requirements. I imagine, in its wisdom, it balanced competing interests. You know, you go to some towns and you have a downtown area where the buildings touch each other and there's no parking and they're 32 stories high.
Usually no children
So
around here.
my point is, it's the governing body's right and responsibility to make zoning regulations that I think meets the needs of the people. And the planning board
I understand
has
that.
limited options.
My point is that.
And in this case, I think they meet all of the zoning requirements per the review letter of the engineer.
I'm just saying that I would rather have a full-fledged site plan as opposed to having a haphazard application, but I have no idea that the safety of my children is assured.
I hear fully what you're saying. I
So at a
just want
minimum,
you-
I'd like you to postpone the hearing until we have that plan.
That the board will take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Please give your name and address.
Good evening, Shlomo Borelowitz, 1000 Waldorf Terrace.
Sir, please spell your last name.
B as in boy, E-R-E-L-O-W-Y-T-Z. I currently have
Sir, let
two...
me put you under affirmation. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you'll give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Like this, I have two children in school. School is extremely run well, and they're very accommodating to the neighborhoods, they're very accommodating what people need, very accommodating to the parent body. It's extremely well run, and I don't think there's anybody that should have a problem with anything that should happen from the school. I do run a camp in the summertime, has over 100 children. I'm used to calling up J's and ordering the bus, figuring out how the pickup should be, how the schedule should be. If there's a head staff of the school that's willing to make things run well and run smoothly, there is nothing in the world that should stop them from having the safety that we heard about the safety. Running a camp, the first thing is I'm concerned about is the safety.
Am I to understand you're in favor of this application?
Definitely.
All right, I think the board gets your point. And-
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard?
Ellie Goldring, 17 Rena Lane, happen to be a property owner on East Spruce as well.
And please spell your last name.
Goldring.
Do you affirm the testimony you'll give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I just want to bring out to the attention of the board that happens to be East Spruce is the widest street, even wider than actually Albert is, as far as the traffic concerned. And all new construction does have curbs and sidewalks. So I'm in favor of this application.
What sidewalk?
Excuse me?
Stay with the sidewalk, because everybody else has a sidewalk.
Everyone else has sidewalks, that's right.
All right, listen.
Okay.
This is not.
That's it.
Sir, please take your seat. Thank you. Sir, come up to the microphone. Please state your name.
I am Klein, so East Bruce Street,
How do you spell Klein?
K-L-C-I-N.
I'm sorry, your first name?
Klein, C-H-A-I-N.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Please address your comments to the board.
I live on East Bruce Street, and we're very concerned about the safety that's going on. And something that wasn't brought up also is that besides for the big school across the street, which has an additional school in the back and an additional elementary school, the lot next door is also a school already, which is going to be another building going up next door to it. So it's going to be more traffic, more congested. And being at both boys' schools, there's going to be usually dismissals and schedules run at the same time. There's going to be more safety issues that ever the buses, they can't really get out of each other and cross the street. It's not wide enough for buses to go in and out. In fact, the school behind this building on Pine Street, they even had to request a variance to widen the lot to get the buses out, so they don't stick the bus out too much into the street. Meaning is that when you have two schools across the street from each other, you're talking about the buses go into each other, and the fact is on a daily basis, there are cars parked there alongside all over. There are cars all over. So the idea of having a bus drop off on the curb and all that is you can't have a curb there if people are parked there. You can't get alongside the curb. That's a real safety issue. and if it's possible to get a real plan to see what it's gonna look like, so we can know better what we're not like, if it's a safety issue and a safety issue for our kids, we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else on the public?
R-E-I-D-L-E-R.
Speak in the microphone, please.
Khil Reader, R-E-I-D-L-E-R.
Please spell your first name.
Y-E-C-H-I-E-L.
Please raise your right hand. You affirm the testimony you give before this board with the truth, all truth, nothing but the truth. That's your left hand, but that's okay.
I'm here on behalf of the Rebbe Kalmanowitz and the close friend of Rebbe Kalmanowitz.
We can't hear you.
I'm here on behalf of Rebbe Kalmanowitz as well as many other people. I request that everyone who's here on behalf of him, please raise your hand.
You know, and I've said this to the board many times, you can't count heads, just because 50 people are in favor of something, and 3 people are against it, 3 people against it could outweigh the 50. So that really just means one person got more people to come out.
He's going to be taking care of the head of the rabbis.
Well, but nevertheless, you know, it's not the board's role to count heads. It's the substance of what it says. Thank you.
I would just like to mention 2 points. Point number 1 is that the Rabbi Kalmanowitz has been involved in many, many different community activities before, and he has great capabilities in running schools and organizations. He's done many things in the past, and anything he's done has been extremely successful, as has the school. And anything that, must be dealt with, he's definitely very capable, and he's done a great job in the past, and will continue to do a great job. The second point I would like to just bring up is the fact that, many of the issues which have been mentioned have been around for a while already, and for some reason they've never been taken care of yet. For example, sidewalks. If sidewalks are really an issue, they could have been taken care of, many times already, as obviously they're saying it's an issue now already, for some reason it's never been resolved. Okay, thank you very much.
On the construction aside.
What?
On the construction aside.
Right, that's what I'm saying. The fact that we're saying that a new school is going to cause harm to children, whatever's there is there already. So, anything that can be resolved, obviously wasn't resolved. The issue is not as dire as they're saying. Thank you.
Anyone else? Name and address, please.
Isaac Simmons, 1429 Reed Place. S-I-M-I-N-S.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony will be before the board will be
Yes.
We wish to
You got to speak in the microphone.
I think I speak for everybody in the neighborhood when I say that we wish Rabbi Kalmanowitz a lot of success. We're not looking to close his school. We're not looking for him to not succeed. And our concerns are all the concerns that have been mentioned until now. We realize, like Mr. Jackson said, that this is not really a discussion about whether or not it's going to be safe for our neighborhood or not. Unfortunately, that is not the discussion that we're having, that we should be having. And so therefore, I just want to emphasize again what I think what I think we can ask for, which is that this process be done slowly, that it be done the right way, that we dot all the I's, cross all of the T's, we get a full site plan, that we can do our due diligence to make sure that whatever can be done, that to make this proposal safe, and that we will have the opportunity to review it and to do our due diligence, and that's all I can ask.
Thank you.
Sir, the site plan is right here. They follow the box. This is it.
Here's a better copy of it. Of the classrooms and everything.
You talk about a site plan. Architectural plan. Mr. Fire, can you explain how this is laid out on this plan?
Well, the plan as submitted, in accordance with the ordinance, we've shown where 6 cars can park in the existing driveway.
Is that permitted?
Yes, it is. There's no prohibition on it. Now, the ordinance mentioned.
Not stacked, you know what I mean? Having worked in the driveway when we had another, that's stacked.
The board has mentioned that they feel that the school bus should be able to pull off East Spruce Street, and the applicant has agreed. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a place where the bus can pull in, and the bus can stop and unload with load students, and then pull back out again, so it's not in Spruce Street. When we do that, we'll tie the parking into that turnaround, so nobody has to back out onto Spruce Street. We've heard the concerns that there's children playing in the street, we don't want to back out there.
Is the board comfortable with that being delegated to your engineer, or is that something the board wants to see in front of you before you vote on it?
I would like to see it before.
I'd be comfortable with the engineer.
Be comfortable with the engineer? Mr. Franklin,
I'm
what taking?
comfortable with the
Be
engineer.
comfortable with the engineer?
Yes, he's very qualified.
You don't mind me just going down?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the engineer as well.
I'm also comfortable.
Are you comfortable with the engineer reviewing it?
Yeah.
So,
We don't
sir.
have consensus on that?
No, the majority rules on the board, it's, I count five are in favor, one. And that's a very common thing. The board engineer has technical expertise, they understand turn radiuses. It's something that the board engineer can do, can delegate that to the board engineer. So anyway, so that's going to be designed for a bus drop-off, and Mr. Vogt will review it, and it has to be acceptable within the science engineering process.
Okay. So my general point is if there's anything that we can do to give us a better chance of looking and going through this properly, then I'm asking the board to do anything that we can do.
And that is exactly the concern. There's nothing much we could do. They can build it without, if they put sidewalk, they wouldn't even have to come over here. They were asking us for a relief on sidewalk, which they're not getting. I hope so. So we can't really stop them. We can't ask them for nothing. They're being nice to us. They're giving us different circulations so we can have the bus stop, school buses stop. It is what it is.
In earlier applications, Mr. Flannery said something, I might have even forgotten. Everybody likes schools in Lakewood, they just don't like them in the neighborhood. Well, think what would happen in this community if all of a sudden, you know,
100%.
the requirement.
Lakewood has a school, it needs more schools. The difference is here, we're talking about a very small street. All the issues that have been mentioned wouldn't necessarily be issues if they were in a different street in Lakewood. I understand that that's not something that we can argue about, but that is the concern, and we're asking that you do anything to slow down the process so we can get a full understanding of what's needed.
Good job. Thank you. Anyone else?
Of course, please state your name and spell for the record.
Yair Stern, first name is Yair, Y-A-I-R, last name is Stern.
I think I can handle Stern. Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony that you will give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please correct your comments to the board.
I also live in the Albert area. I wanted to first of all just kind of reaffirm a lot of what the people that live in my neighborhood as well are concerned about. First of all, on the main point, we do understand that the zoning rules are as they are, but we are obviously concerned and want to make sure that we can do this as safely as possible. I may have misunderstood. I thought part of what the request from the planning board was a waiver for the site plan to get an official site, the actual site plan. If I understand the request, and this is not my daily business, so I don't totally understand, but whatever site plan this is, obviously we're requesting a waiver.
The terminology is confusing, and what it's called is a site plan exemption.
Right.
What that means is an applicant is exempt from a more formal site plan process. Previously, this was allowed to be done administratively, and there wasn't notice. The regulations were tightened up a little bit to provide for notice, so the neighbors can come out and voice their concerns. But the exemption means that not that they don't have to do it, it just means that there's light requirements. It's kind of misleading the way that's.
And I guess if I can ask, does that mean that when you had stated that they'll go to the engineer, that they won't have to bring those?
They will. Mr. Flannery has indicated that they're going to design a bus drop-off. That'll have to be to the satisfaction of the board engineer. Those details, beyond what has been described, will be reviewed by the board engineer and who will approve that.
Okay. I guess
this matter's approved.
I guess what our concern is, and I understand that there was under oath about how many classrooms there would be, but I think if you saw from the people that came up here and a lot of the parents that testified over that they would be here, most of them, as they said, their kids are in the classrooms, and as the testimony was supposed to be a primary and a third grade, which I guess would mean that most of the people that testified actually, I think, wouldn't have their children actually going to this site. Our concern is as residents that, as the years grow, having done a site ourselves, usually you don't put so much financial resources in to simply have a site that works for today. I understand that as of the coming year, maybe they won't be using, say, the basement or the other sites or the general area. I think we all would assume that in the coming years, as they grow, they're putting a lot of money into this site. They're going to be using it for more classrooms, maybe not the first year, second year, the third year. And I understand we can't say no to the school. Those are the rules. But requesting a full site allows us to make sure that there is, I don't know how else to say it, but moving numbers like we had at the beginning here, originally one site plan, and they moved it around, make sure we have everything in front and everyone can have. I think it will be the benefit of both the school and the neighborhood if we can all just see what we're looking at, and it'll be somewhat more peaceful, honestly, and I think we can all at least feel like we gave it a full shot. And I think in the long run, although it'll obviously stall them a little bit, yes, we know in the long run this will happen, and I think giving us a chance to see it will allow us all to feel like we gave it our best shot, and in the long run, make everybody feel like it's a safer environment, at least from a feeling perspective.
Would the board be interested in a condition, if the board approves this, that as a condition of adopting the resolution and the plan, that the bus drop-off be in front of you? So, we're supposed to improve it, but the board will actually see it, and
Yeah.
That's what I asked for.
We can do that.
Yeah, it's a condition of adopting,
so the
before
board,
we adopt it.
you'll actually see it before you adopt the resolution if this is approved.
Is that through correspondence, right?
Consensus?
Through correspondence?
No, it's not, it's just when the resolution.
No, no. Yeah, at the time of the resolution adoption, yeah, if we approve it.
And you'll get it ahead of time, you'll get a chance to look at it, but the board will go up there like that when the resolution's adopted, you'll be able to see the final configuration.
Absolutely, that's a good idea. Look, I mean, we get it, this is a very emotional thing when schools move to the neighborhood. I have an 18-foot wide street, I have a school next door to me. So hopefully, the school understands and respects the residential character of the neighborhood. I mean, when I have an issue, I call the school next door. They take care of it, they realize they have to be a good neighbor. And hopefully the school realizes it's very emotional when the school, I mean, we get it.
I think it's I think one of the reasons we feel a little bit more emotional than even normal, I think, is just because it's just it's like the third or fourth time already that we have one school on the block. At some point, I guess, maybe if there was all schools on the block, it would actually work. They take all the houses off and put all schools. But it's when there's 3, 4, 5, or 6, at some point you want to say enough is enough.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Mayerfeld.
Please spell your last name
Mayerfeld.
and your address.
1450 East Spruce Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I affirm.
Please address the comments to the board.
I just want to agree with the last speaker. I actually want to mention that we actually reached out in advance to the school, and we understand it's a permitted use. And we reached out to Rabbi Kamenovitz, and we tried to meet with him. We actually had 2 neighbors call him with safety concerns. There was no response. I offered to come to him, meet him, give him, to work with him, give him some constructive advice, and he refused. He says he's too busy. I see he has a successful school, but we're willing to work with him. We tried working with him, but meanwhile he's not working with us. That's just I want to put that on the record. That is why we're asking to see a full plan before. He is not working with us at this time. We tried working with him. So I'm personally requesting, if the planning board is able to require the single turnaround. I want to mention another thing. There is a septic field in the front. So I don't even know if it's doable to have a turnaround on the top of the septic field. Another thing, we put up several of these safety concerns. Am I incorrect on that?
The septic area is not actually that low.
Right.
The leach field may be larger.
I mean, look, we said they have to pull the buses off the street, they said they're gonna do it.
Right. Okay. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it.
Bottom line.
Right.
That's the maximum we can ask them. Bottom line.
Gotcha. It is required a circulation plan. Is that a condition of approval generally? Unless they're asking for a waiver for that. So that is something that generally is required. And I would like to see it before. I understand it may be doable, but currently they are not working with us. And I would like to work with them and see if possible. I'd like to reiterate, the road width is 28 feet, the paved road width. Most of all of the new construction houses that do have sidewalks, most do not. I'm very concerned when there's a ready-to-wait elementary school, a high school, and a base measures on the block. The parking is currently full already. I'm very concerned when my buses stop or the drop-offs. My kids walking down the street, there's no space for my kids to walk. I'd like to see maybe we should put in sidewalks down the block. I don't know if the board has the authority to do that. But our serious safety concerns, and we want to work with him. But we'd like to see the site plan first, just to make sure, a final site plan, to make sure that it really does work, and he is working with us. Because currently we ask for a meeting and he's refusing. Thank you very much.
Any further questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public who should be heard? Close the meeting to the public. Gentlemen?
Well, wait, you want to say something? No. Oh, okay, all right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the application with some stipulations. Firstly, the garage is not going to be finished, the basement's not going to be finished, and we're going to see the bus, I'm going to put the bus circulation plan prior to the adoption of the resolution.
And curb and sidewalk.
Oh, yeah, and we're not granting any waivers, there's no waivers. Okay.
Can I ask for a septic report to make sure the septic is functional for that school?
The septic, we can ask for whatever you want, the septic, something to the Ocean County Board of Health, and if the septic's not functional, nobody
They don't
will
get
do
a fee.
it. So that's bottom line.
Part of getting-
I mean, we can do that, but that's.
And I'll second his motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Graffo?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. That does the agenda. Do we have approval for minutes for July the 10th? Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Approve the bills?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Can we go for a break first?
Motion adjourned?
Motion.
No second?
No second, I'm a second.
On the stay.
Well, that's all I'll let them, I can't imagine you'd have to, but I will let them know. Why don't you shoot something? Yeah, and then everyone will have
So there's no stipulation.
I wouldn't worry about it.
That's the whole idea, let all different units get permits.
No, no. Did you hear what I told you?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have both sides.
Huh? I didn't say that.
Someone leave a camera?
That's not mine.
That's what when I said camera stand, that's the way my mind was working, but it's not mine. I didn't notice it at the beginning.
You see how nice I leave everything for Alex?
You do, I know, I appreciate it. I found out when Josh Smucker retired, he was and I like Josh, I get
And she
along
didn't
with
know,
Josh.
she didn't just find out, Josh wasn't here. There was nothing to do.
Right. When you have the big ones, I can understand it's easier, you know? Good night, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Brian?
Yeah, I would ask more questions.
What?
Megan, I was gonna live with
Night, Terry.
Remind me not to have the coffee pot on top of the toilet.
Probably not coffee, probably what it needs, right? They fill it in there. Coffee?
Like that automatic coffee pot. In the hand?
Your tripod, I think? Yeah.
Or are we still being broadcast or we got
Oh, yeah, camera's